Most successful rebuilds take 2 to 3 years to accomplish. A team finds themselves with a new coach or a new quarterback, or oftentimes both, and this resets their clock and begins the rebuild process. The typical scale to measure whether a rebuild has been successful or not is to make the playoffs, or even win a playoff game, but the goalposts can definitely move depending on the organization, its history of success, and level of recent rock bottom. For the Texans, they're one of the youngest franchises in the league without any Super Bowl appearances, only 6 playoff appearances ever, and we're coming off a 3-13-1 season with Davis Mills as their primary starting quarterback. Lovie Smith even found a way to win the final game of the regular season to knock them out of the first overall pick as a goodbye gift. They'd been through 4 different head coaches in as many years, and there wasn't much hope for the turnaround. The Houston head coaching job was not viewed as a destination for top candidates based on the roster, the lack of success in their history, and questionable ownership, as well as the lack of quarterback. But what was going in the Texans' favor was that one of the top young prospective coaches on the market just happened to be one of the best players to ever wear a Texans uniform. DeMeco Ryans was a Defensive Rookie of the Year and 2-time Pro Bowler with the Texans, and then finished his career in Philly. As a coach, he started with the 49ers as a defensive quality control coach in 2017, working up to inside linebackers coach, and then eventually defensive coordinator in 2021 after Robert Saleh left to coach the Jets. After just 1 season as the defensive coordinator in San Francisco, he was asked to interview for the Vikings head coach vacancy, but declined a second interview and remained with the 49ers. He went on to have another dominant season as the DC before interviewing and ultimately being hired as the new head coach in Houston. Ryans likely had his choice of destinations with the Cardinals, Colts, Broncos, Panthers, and Texans all being available, but he chose Houston. It being a homecoming was part of the decision, but he's smart and wasn't going to go somewhere that didn't give him a chance of making an immediate impact. Sure, the Texans were coming off a 3-13-1 season, but that means there's only room to go up. They had a roster lacking talent, but they also had $40 million in cap space, and they didn't have a quarterback, but they had 2 picks inside the top 12 to change that really quick, and they did. Enter CJ Stroud. After the Panthers traded up to number 1 and selected Bryce Young as their guy, the Houston Texans were left with the choice between CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson most likely. Richardson had been a late riser with comparisons to Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson, but Stroud had been at the top all season long. Back and forth between he and Young for the top spot, and when it came down to draft day, he slid 1 spot to Houston, and so far, it looks like a match made in heaven. Being in the AFC South, it was pretty safe to assume the Jaguars would be tough competition, but beyond that, there was a rookie quarterback, the aforementioned Anthony Richardson in Indy, and the Titans had 3 quarterbacks in their roster with no clue who to go with. It felt like everyone would be playing for second place in the division, but there was room for some easy wins to help Stroud get going in his first year. Remember, this team only won 3 games in 2022. They had the 30th ranked scoring offense in the league and the 27th ranked scoring defense. There was nothing to hang their hat on that showed hope for a bright future. And honestly, the season started out looking like more of the same. In the first game of the year, they lost to the Ravens 25-9, but Stroud didn't look bad. The Ravens were certainly going to be a top team in the AFC with a tough defense, and Stroud was able to complete 64% of his passes for 242 yards with 0 interceptions. Not bad. But in week 2, they lost to that other rookie quarterback, Richardson, and the Colts 20-31. Again though, not because of Stroud. He threw for nearly 400 yards and 2 touchdowns, and once again, 0 interceptions. They were getting better each game, but needed to find a way to finish games and get their first win. Which brings us to week 3 against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who were 1-1 with a tough loss to the Chiefs the week prior. Stroud went into Duval County and delivered an elite performance, completing 67% of his passes for 280 yards and 2 touchdowns, with yet again 0 interceptions. They walked out of there with the win, scoring 37 points in the process. The Texans discovered something that worked that day because they'd go on to win 5 out of their next 7 and 4 out of their final 5 games, ripping off win streaks left and right. Stroud had been the catalyst for this team's success this year. His performance on the field has made him the likely Rookie of the Year, and had he not missed a few games, he would have set multiple rookie records. He came up just 250 yards shy of setting the passing yards record for a rookie, and he's in the top 10 for passing touchdowns by a rookie, throwing 23 touchdowns with only 5 interceptions to his name. Stroud is also a leader in the locker room and an extension of Coach Ryans. Named a captain as a rookie, he's taken the responsibility seriously, being a vocal leader and leading by example. The only thing about him that's rookie is his time spent in the league. As a matter of fact, being as young as he is at just 22 years old, it allows him this special level of confidence that he can move past any bad play and on to the next. Remember the 5 interceptions that he had this season? Well, 3 of them came in 1 game against the Cardinals, and they still won. But after the game, when asked about the turnovers, he was quoted as saying, "Well, Steph Curry never stops shooting." His reference to the greatest shooter ever to play in the NBA is perfect. He's going to keep making these passes because he's got confidence in his ability to make the play. He also clearly loves basketball based on his multi-sport warm-ups that became famous throughout the league. So he made it through the regular season and lifted the Texans from 3 wins to 9 regular season wins. In any other division, it wouldn't have been good enough to win and make the postseason, but here in the AFC South it was. It was good enough to land them a matchup with the super hot Joe Flacco-led Cleveland Browns, who had one of the top 5 defenses in the league. So how does he respond? By throwing 3 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, plus 274 yards, and leading his team to a 45-14 victory. He's now the youngest starting quarterback ever to win a playoff game, on top of all the other accolades he's already earned. The Ravens are up next, and it will be a great return to Baltimore to see how much he and his team have grown since week 1 of the season. I expect the game to be a lot more competitive than 25-9, and for Stroud to put up some big-time numbers. But whether they can beat the number 1 seed or not, they're way ahead of schedule in this rebuild, and it's thanks to the young man from Ohio State who is thankful he wasn't selected number 1.